Hello everyone and welcome back to the Grand Chester. It's the Tata Steel Rapid event in India. It's Magnus Carlsen versus Ding Liren. It's the final round of the Rapids, so this is round 9 and it's really an impressive game. For those of you who maybe don't know, the venue of where the players are playing the tournament is the National Library in India. Here we have a very nice photo of the audience, so you can see that it's quite crowded, much more people than in other tournaments. So if any of you are in the audience and watching this video, do comment in the description below. Would be very awesome. So that being said, let's check out the game. As the title suggests, new poison into bringing into the martial attack. Always an interesting idea. So it's a very theoretical struggle. We're not going to dwell too long on the opening. We have e4, e5, knight f3, knight to c6, and now bishop to b5, going for the Ruy Lopez. We have a6, Morphy's defense, bishop to a4, and knight to f6. We have castles and bishop to e7. And although I've seen Ding play the martial attack quite a lot, well, not a lot, but I've seen him play it, but I don't think I've ever seen Magnus playing against the martial. So rook to e1 and b5. I'm not saying that he never played against the martial, I'm just saying I've never seen it. Bishop to b3. We have castles and c3. Here Magnus invites Ding to go for the martial attack, and we have d5. The martial attack is on the board. E captures, knight captures, and of course knight captures on e5. Knight captures, rook captures, and here, even though in the old days you could have gone knight f6, bishop to b7, there are some other moves that were played. Today, in modern day chess, you will most likely see c6. This is what Ding goes for. We have d3 by Magnus. d4 is the most popular line. d3 is what Magnus prefers here. Bishop to d6. Rook back to e1, and now bishop to f5, just developing the bishop nicely. Queen to f3, attacking the bishop, and now queen to h4. We had this position many times, as we always enjoy covering the martial attack. So here we already mentioned, but in case some of you don't know, if you capture the bishop, queen captures, king f1, and rook 8 to e8 will give white a lot of problems, since queen to h1 will be mate, so you have to play something. Rook captures, queen h1 check, king goes back, check, and now you're going to block with the bishop, but even though you're up a piece, you have a king on e2, and it's a very unpleasant position to play. It's unclear how you will develop the knight. You can't do it for the moment, as the rook would hang, and it's although it may be possible to play it, no one actually plays it, since why would you? So after queen to h4, we have g3, pushing the queen back, and now queen h3, guarding the bishop from there, and now bishop to e3. We have bishop captures on d3, and now, again, this position has been reached quite a few times. Knight to d2 is the main idea here, but here Carlsen just goes for bishop captures on d5. He just grabs the pawn, and bishop captures on d5 is a new move in the position, at least in top-tier tournaments. So as of move 17, we have a completely new game. And okay, Ding captures the bishop, and we have queen captures on d5. So here Carlsen doesn't mind grabbing a pawn, and also both of the bishops are under attack. So how can Ding avoid such a loss? Rook 8 to d8. Now saying, okay, you can capture my bishop, but if queen captures on d3, then of course bishop captures on g3 just finishes the game. Now the queen is under attack, the queen to h2 is coming, and there is no good reply to this. After the queen moves, you're going to go bishop captures on h2. Now you have to go to h1, king h1, bishop b8, or wherever, doesn't really matter, king g1, and now rook to d6 will now end the game. So well, it is possible to play this. I'm sure all of the top grandmasters, and maybe even not top grandmasters, know how to end this game with black if such a position happens. So, and okay, you could block with bishop to f4. Now rook g6 can be met with bishop to g3, but it doesn't help you. Just bishop captures, and you're just falling apart. F captures, rook captures, king f2, queen checks. You have to go back, king f1, and rook g1 is mate. So although something like this will never happen, it's good to know. So Ding played rook 8 to d8. I believe without much hesitation. Queen to g2 now, going back with the queen, and now queen to c8. Now, as Carlsen grabbed the pawn, he's interested in a queen trade. He wants to trade down and enjoy his extra pawn. Ding, of course, says, not interested. I have the bishop pair. I'm going to push h5, h4, create an attack against your king. Knight to d2 by Magnus, now continuing development, and bishop back to f5 now, with ideas of kicking the queen away from there with bishop h3. We have bishop to d4 by Magnus, now not allowing the rook to have the d file for himself, and also in the future this might be an issue for black. Rook fe8, here Ding prepares to tuck the bishop back in for later, and f3 now. We have bishop to f8, will be a nice defender, and later, if you need it, you can always just bring it out. And now a3 by Magnus. We have rook to e6, preparing to double up on the e file, and here Magnus trades once. We have rook captures and queen captures on e6. Queen to f2. Now preparing to bring the rook into the game with rook to e1, but of course rook to e8, Ding doesn't allow it, and now knight to f1, preparing knight to e3. And here, if you try queen e2, white will still play knight e3 and force you into a queen trade where you just have white has a perfectly fine position and he's still up a pawn, so you don't really have the option of something like this. So Ding continues with h5. He wants to push h4 and open up the defenses in front of Carlsen's king. We have knight to e3, attacking the bishop, and the bishop to h3 now. Rook to e1, now preparing to trade off the rooks with knight to c2, so queen to c6, getting the queen out of the way, and now knight to g2, again offering a rook trade. We have rook captures on e1, better to trade rooks than to leave Magnus with the open e file. We have knight captures on e1, and now queen to g6, but now Carlsen is able to trade down even further. Basically, only compensation Ding has is the bishop pair, and if it's not utilized well, it's not really compensation. So here, queen to c2, Magnus offers a queen trade. Ding, of course, declines it, bishop to f5, and now queen to d2. We have bishop back to e6, and now queen to d3, again offering a queen trade. Ding again declines, and queen to e3. Slowly but surely, Magnus improving the position of his queen. Bishop back to e6, and now bishop to c5. Now, offering a trade of dark square bishops, Ding accepts. We have bishop captures, queen captures, and now queen to b1. Attacking the knight on e1, also the pawn on b2. So queen to f2, only good move that prevents both threats. And now bishop to d5. Okay, we have king to g2. Now unpinning, the knight can once again enter the game. And a5 now. Here, Ding wants to push b4 with queen to e2. Now, with ideas of delivering some checks along the back rank. So queen to f5, bringing the queen back into the game. Now the f3 pawn will be threatened. Also bishop to e6 and queen to h3 might be an idea in the future. But okay, for the moment the f3 pawn is nicely protected. King f2, unpinning. Now you might even push f4 at some point if needed. And bishop to e6 now. With knight to c2, now preparing knight to d4, a nice dark square and a nice central square for Carlsen's knight, and queen to h3 now, threatening queen captures here. King to g1, defending, and now bishop to c4. So excellent squares for Ding's pieces. We have queen to e8 check, king to h7, and now you have to prevent queen to f1 mate. And if you try it with queen to e1, it's very slow. Ding just continues with the attack with h4. So here Carlsen finds knight to e3, attacking the bishop, also guarding f1, so it's not a problem. Ding goes back, queen to e6, and now comes queen captures on e6. H4 is too slow here. If h4, just queen check and you pick up the pawn, so it's not a problem. Even though you'd have a double, after the king moves, let's say king g8, you would trade here and you would have a doubled pawn here, but still, you're up 2 pawns, so shouldn't be a problem. After knight e3, we have queen to e6. Well, first this queen on e6, obviously, and now Carlsen just trades. We have queen captures, bishop captures, preserving the bishop against knight, and now Magnus doesn't want to allow a4, so b4. Well, he doesn't mind a4 now, he just doesn't want to allow it before pushing b4, as you will never be able to push b4 again. We have a captures on b4, a captures, and now g5 by Ding, and again h4, creating more weaknesses for Ding. We have G captures on h4 and now G captures on h4. We have king to g6, Ding starts bringing the king into the game, and now king f2. King to f6, now comes knight f1, preparing knight to g3 to go after the h5 pawn. And here, Ding tries a very interesting idea. He tries to trap Carlsen's knight. He plays king e5, knight to g3, and now f5. He offers the h5 pawn. We have knight captures on h5. Magnus calculates precisely that it might, well, it is possible to capture the pawn, or maybe it isn't. We'll see what happens. Ding pushes f4, and now it's very dangerous. The g3 square has been taken from the knight, and if you try something weird, let's say king e2, then you just get bishop f7, attacking the knight, knight g7, and king f6, and the knight is trapped. No squares are available to the knight, as they are covered by the king and by the bishop. So here, Magnus goes knight to g7. It's the only good move here. We have bishop to f7, grabbing the h5 square away from the knight, preparing king to f6 to trap it, but now we have h5. King to f6 and now h6. Defending the knight, we have king to g6, and now what Carlsen found when he decided to go after the h-pawn, knight to h5. That's the whole point, because now, if you capture it, h7 just queens, there's no stopping the pawn. So here, Ding saw that he cannot allow this. He played king captures on h6, but now comes knight captures on f4. And here, Ding was very sad, obviously, but then again, he did beat Magnus in the tiebreaks of the Singfield Cup, so good for Magnus to get his revenge, but I don't think Ding was hoping to go down while he plays the martial attack. And here we even have a photo of this position, courtesy of Leonard Otis, official photographer of the Grand Chess Tour. There you have it. And that's the position on the board. King goes to g5 now. You can see that Ding is not very happy with himself. Also, Wesley is very uncomfortable looking at the position. It's just ugly what happened on the board. But yeah, here we have king to g5 by Ding. Magnus just retreated, knight e2, and it was in this position that Ding resigned the game, as there is nothing more to do here. Well, king f5 seems to be the last move, but I think he just like put the king there while resigning, and then the board picked the move up. Could be that. And Magnus was up on time for the entire game. At the end of the game, Ding had like 20 seconds on the clock. Magnus had over 10 minutes. So Magnus really prepared this line, and he knew very well that it was okay to grab that pawn. And I don't know, we'll have to wait a bit longer for someone else to try the martial attack in such a elite event. So with this victory, we end the 3 days of the rapid section, and now I will show the standings for those of you who are interested. Here are the standings. Magnus wins the rapid event, but we still have 2 days of blitz where you can win additional 18 points, so anything can still happen. So Carlsen in sole lead with 15 out of 18, repeating his success from Abidjan, all wins and only 3 draws. Nakamura follows in second place with 11 out of 18, and then we have a tie, 3-place tie. Giri, Aryan, and Wesley So with 9 points. Then with 8 we have Ding, Anand, and Hari Krishna. Nepo with 7, and Vidit with 6 points so far. But like I said, it's a double round robin next 2 days, so anyone can still do wonders in this tournament. So yeah, I think I already mentioned, I believe Magnus's performance here is above 3,000, not really sure how much exactly, which is very nice. And also he is once again the highest rated rapid player in the world after this tournament. So that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Burak Uzun Parmak, OPG Mihail Ivanchan, Jose Veraldo Ali Jr., and Lyle McVicker for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. Continue to check up on some other games. I've seen you suggested some games, so I'm going to check them out from this very nice rapid event. Check out on your other suggestions, and continue doing so until we start our next big saga. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your Sunday.